Okay, guys, so please don't forget to turn your cameras on. Please turn your cameras on so that we can start today's class. Okay. Okay, guys. So today we're gonna continue working on the speaking section, and we're actually gonna continue working on the first task of the speaking section, the independent question. And today we're gonna focus basically on practicing. So everything we're gonna do is just practice with different question types, with different topics, so that you guys get to practice and maybe hear some feedback. Okay. Remember, for this question, you get the question, you will hear it, you will see it on your screen. How many seconds do you have to prepare? How many? Anyone remember?
15.
Exactly. So you get 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to speak, right? So, okay, guys. We're gonna start with this question. The question says, some people prefer to get information from books. Others prefer using a computer to access information via the internet. Which do you prefer? Explain why. Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so we're gonna start with Sergio today. Everyone's gonna go eventually. You're only gonna be the first, Sergio. So please, you can start speaking now.
Okay. From my personal point of view, I prefer to search information for computer. Besides, it's always more update than the information from the books. And if we have a computer, only just one clip, we can have more information, and now we can have information and anywhere. And it's more commodity than books, because we have information in cell phones, and that's all.
Okay, Sergio, well done. That wasn't bad at all. So the tips that I can give you. Okay, first one, if you're gonna use something like from my personal perspective, or to me, if you're gonna use one of those phrases like personally speaking, the way I think, the way I feel, the way I see it, go directly. You need to tell me something that doesn't include the word I later. So from my personal opinion, computers are better to access information, right? So I'm not saying, in my perspective, I think that computers are better. Because when you do that, then you're kind of repeating the same idea. Okay, so if you're gonna say from my personal, I don't know, to me, or in my personal view, then go directly to an state without using or repeating the word I. Okay, or other way, you could start with a verb and say, I definitely prefer to access information via the internet, right, or to use a computer. So that would be a tip for your introduction. And now, as far as your response, and this goes for your entire response, I don't know if you noticed, but do you think that was a complete response? Or what was missing there?
Maybe more details?
Exactly. Yeah. You were missing the details, right? You actually have many ideas, and that's a good thing because you were able to think of many, many ideas. You have many reasons. You told me one, the information is more up to date, so it's updated. Two, it's easier and it's faster because you find information at just one click, you said. Second, you said that it's more comfortable because you can do it anywhere, and you can use any device you want. So you gave me three reasons, right? You said the information is more updated, it's faster, and it's easier or more convenient. So you have three different reasons. And remember that you only need one or two. So I suggest that instead of giving or talking about too many ideas, because it creates, like, it doesn't seem so organized. It's just like a brainstorming what you did. But in order to have a complete response and like a sustained one, you need to focus on only one or two of those ideas. So for example, you can maybe talk about the fact that the information you find on the internet is more updated. So use that as your reason. You tell me, I prefer to access information via the internet since the information you find there is more updated than the one you find on books. And then give an example, right? So for example, the other day I was searching for, I don't know, I was doing a project for my IT class and I was searching for information about social media. Of course, I wasn't able to find that information on books on the library, so I had to use the internet, which is the only place where you can find that type of information related to technology, right? So I'm only focusing in that entire response on one idea, update. Or if you want, you can choose another one, right? You can say that it's fast. So you compare. So you say, when you go to the library, you spend 30 minutes searching books and stuff. Whereas if you go to a search engine or you type the keywords on the computer, it usually takes you about 5 minutes. So focus on only one information. Oh, I'm sorry, one idea, okay? That will be my main tip. Do you guys have any questions about this one we did? No? Okay. Now let's look at this one. This here says, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Teachers should not be too friendly to their students. Use details and examples to explain your answer. You will now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. Okay. So maybe we're gonna go with Wilder now. So please, you might start speaking now.
I will definitely say that I don't agree with the statement, since I consider that some teachers are more friendly with the students than some of the classmates to the direct student. For instance, when I was a kid, I remember I used to have a teacher that used to help me a lot in math, since my other classmates didn't want to help me to understand or practice. Furthermore, I believe that everything has to be with respect, if it's a teacher or other person. And those are my reasons why I feel this way.
Okay, Wilder, great. So nice. I like the fact that you focused on one idea, you had your introduction, and your reason was that, what was it exactly? You said that teachers could be even more friendly than their classmates, right?
Yep.
What exactly did you mean there?
Well, sometimes when you need some help, you ask for a classmate, he doesn't want to help you, but the teacher will be always there to help you in a friendly way or not.
Oh, okay, I get that idea. And that was a good example too. So you talked about your own experience when going to high school. And great, I noticed that you had extra time and you added that second reason, although it wasn't really a reason, right? You said it was like a note, a final note. Everything has to be has to be done with respect. So maybe instead of like adding that counterclaim at the end, try to continue with a second reason. Or if you cannot think of something, go with a conclusion. Okay, but then try not to use anything that could maybe oppose to what you're saying, because I think that thing of respect maybe could be used as something to object what you'd said, right? So try to always use things that are supporting what you said. Okay, guys. Do you have any questions so far? No questions? Okay. So let's do this one. The question says, some people think that modern technology has made people's lives simpler. Others believe it has made people's lives more complicated. Which point of view do you agree with? Explain why. You guys now will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so now we're gonna go with Effie. So please, you may start speaking now.
Sorry. I do think that modern technology has made people's lives simpler. Since all the information we have on our hands. For example, on the internet, me as a student, I can find every assignment, every question, every investigation I could ask for. Otherwise, about technology making some stuff at home automatically, like Siri. That's a great example of why technology makes people's life is simpler.
Okay, nice, yeah. So your reason, what was it?
I forgot.
Because I
Sorry,
think you
teacher.
gave two examples, right? I like the approach you took because you approach this question in two different scenarios. You talked about you as a student and how it helps you, and you talked about how it helps people at home, right? But what was
Yes,
the main reason?
I don't know. Sorry, dear. The last 2 days I was not at class since my university classes, so I'm not sure if there's a template or I tried to.
Try to answer. Okay. Yes, there is a template that we've seen, but honestly, you don't need a template. The way you did it was fine. You know, you used good words. The only thing that I'm gonna that I'm gonna ask you to keep is please try to keep the structure. And the structure that we said we're gonna use, first the introduction that you gave, right? You said, I don't think that technology has made our lives more complicated. And after your introduction, which is your answer to the question, you need to state one reason, and it has to be short. So the thing is, you went directly to the examples, you went directly to the details. You told me that how it works, how it helps the students, and how it helps people at home. And those are great for examples, but before the examples, you should have a more general idea. One reason, it always has to be there. But for example, one of the most common reasons that you guys are always going to be able to use in most of the questions are efficiency, right? So you can maybe talk about how technology helps us save time, which I think is maybe one of what you said, right? So as a student, it makes you save time with the internet, and it also saves you time when you're doing things at home, when you're doing tasks at home. So maybe you can talk about that, or you could talk about productivity. You could say technology makes us more productive, or you can talk about money too. Maybe technology makes us save money. So try to always first, before going into the details, have a reason, okay? So the structure should be something like this. First, your introduction. I think that modern technology has made our lives simple. Second, your reason, because or since it saves us time. And then you need to give your details, right? Which is what you gave as a student or at home, okay? Is that fine, Edmi? Do you have any questions?
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we'll do another one. All right, this one seems large. It says, imagine that you must decide between two homes to live in. One place is very large and brand new, but it is very far from work or university. The second one is very small and old, but you will be able to get to work or university in less than 5 minutes. Which place would you prefer to live in? Explain why. Okay, so we are imagining a situation where you have two choices. Now, please, you will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So we're gonna go with Wilder now. So could you please go now?
I prefer living in a small place and old because it's close to college. Since I don't have problem having just a bed or a bathroom and a kitchen to use, for me the other things are not important. And for instance, I live in my house. In my room, I have my kitchen and my bathroom, and with that, I'm pretty happy. And furthermore, I believe that some people prefer closer places to college so they can arrive on time than being in big places that will make them trouble to arrive in time.
Okay. Okay, Wilder, well done. So nice. It was simple. Your ideas were simple, but that's okay because your sentences were correct and you spoke calmly. So it was really cool. You had your introduction. You said, I prefer living in a place that's close to my university or work. It's fine. But remember, try to always use the same verbs as you have in the question. Remember that this is an imaginary situation. If you had to decide between these two homes, which one would you prefer, right? Instead of I prefer, right now, you maybe would want to say I would prefer, right? You can even use a conditional in there. In case you have these imaginary or hypothetical situations, like if you have the opportunity to choose between this and this and that, what would you choose? That's one type of question. Try to use maybe a conditional you can use in there. You say, so if I had the chance to choose, and that's good for grammar too, right? The second condition. If I had the chance to choose, I would definitely prefer this. Or if you want, it's okay if you don't use a conditional, but try to use the would to keep it imaginary. Okay? That's for your introduction. Everything else was great. Your second reason, you said, furthermore, I think that some people prefer to live closer in order to arrive on time. It's fine, but it's better if you talk about yourself instead of other people. So tell me, furthermore, I like to be on time and I don't like to miss any of my classes. So I would prefer to live close, right? So talk about yourself instead of other people. Is that okay? Do you guys have any questions now? Okay. Now, this one here says, a university wants to require all students to have their own laptop computers. Do you agree or disagree with this policy? Give specific reasons to support your opinion. Okay? You guys will now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so this time we're gonna go with Amalia. So please, you may start speaking now.
I agree with the idea to to all students have their own laptop or laptop computer, because it's a good form to the students study and focus in class with the tools for own develop of the class.
Okay, all right, Amalia. So I think that you're taking too much time. Okay, you need to try to go faster. Now, some tips to do that. First of all, you shouldn't be wasting any of your time in the introduction. So I noticed this yesterday too. We're gonna keep on practicing. If you feel or if you continue wasting too much time in the introduction, because only in the introduction you took around 25 seconds, and then you started your reason when you were 20 seconds left. So one thing you could do is summarize it as much as you can, right? Answer the question directly without even mentioning the statement. So if the question is, do you agree or disagree with this policy? To go faster, just tell me, I agree with this policy. Okay, that could be your entire your introduction. You don't need anything else. But you need to do it quicker. Okay, so I agree with this policy. That's good for your introduction. And same thing for your reason. Try to go with shorter reasons, So can you think of another reason? Maybe a shorter one, even if it's a simple one. Why should the students have their own laptop computers?
Well, people works better. For example, in universities, sometimes people don't have the equipment, necessary equipment for the class, and the professors will need put a group of students in class, but don't is for, how do you say desempeño?
Performance?
Thank you. For performance is difficult because the laptops are personal computer. One person use a laptop, done 2 or 3, and it's difficult for the students learn, and for the professor to bring the class.
Okay, I get that idea. Really, thanks. Now tell me something. Do you translate when you speak from Spanish? Are you thinking in Spanish and translating?
Sometimes in my brain, but it's difficult because Spanish has a structure. English have a similar but different structure. So sometimes I don't use the the structures.
Okay. Please give me a second, guys.
Excuse me, repeat please.
She told us to wait for a second. She's gonna be back, right back in a minute.
Okay, guys, I'm really sorry. Okay, so yes, as to what you were saying, Amalia, that's true. That's the thing, you know, English and Spanish have different structures, so it's impossible to translate. Okay, so I'm glad that you told me that. So what I'd suggest, what I was saying, just try to go with a faster introduction. Don't think too much. Even if you have to summarize it, if it's agree or disagree, just tell me, yes, I agree. And that's fine for an introduction. And for your reason, always try to go with short and simple ones. Because I think that you're trying to maybe go with more complicated reasons. So you're talking about their performance in class, you're talking about how they do and the tools they need and the equipment of the university. So maybe those are maybe a little bit complicated reasons to work with. So try to go with simpler ones. I'm gonna share with you guys this document. And here you will find a couple of reasons that are the ones that have been repeated the most for most of the questions. And those are usually really short and simple reasons that you can always use. So please make sure that you check it out. And as you go, as you practice, you can add more reasons to this document. Okay, so you have a few here. For example, one reason you could use for this one that's pretty short is you could say, students need to have their own computers because they need to develop or they need to have experience using technology, right? And then you say that maybe in the work field, they're gonna need to use technology, so they need to become familiarized with it. And maybe that could be one reason, and it's short, right? We're talking about gaining experience or expertise on something. So maybe you can talk about productivity. You could say using computers makes them more productive because maybe they save time, right? Maybe when typing is faster than taking notes. So try to go with those simple reasons, okay? Instead of explaining too much. So that would be my tip. Do you have any questions? Do you guys have any questions so far? No questions? No? Okay. So let's go with this one. So this one here says, some college students choose to prepare for careers where there are more job opportunities. Others choose to study subjects that interest them regardless of job opportunities. Which do you think is better and why? You guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So we're gonna go with, oh, Sergio's no longer here. So Edvi, you can please go now.
I do believe that college students should choose more job, a career that has more job opportunities, since obviously the money. In these times, we should have to prepare of all time of all of time styles, and it's difficult to rent a house, difficult to buy a new car. So if you don't have job opportunities, you're not gonna have um you're not gonna have a great style of life and great it was bad.
Okay, great. So I honestly really liked your reason. I liked your introduction tool. It was direct. Which do you think is better? So you answered it directly. I think, or I believe that students should choose this. It would be even better if you could answer this question more directly, right? Using the same verb. If they say, what do you think is better? Tell me, I think that it's definitely better to prepare for careers where there are more job opportunities. Okay, maybe a more directly way to answer. Your reason was great because of money. Maybe you could say because in today's generation, money is a necessity. And you had your details, right? But honestly, I would advise maybe being a little bit more specific in your details. So you, first of all, after you give your reason, money is a necessity in today's world, try to always have a transition there. So tell me, for example, for instance, in my case, in my experience, try to narrow it down a bit first using a transition and then including details, right? So you did include those details like buying a car, buying a house, but try to add the transition before those details, right? So for instance, we need to buy houses and cars and pay for our kids' education. You can give the details there, but don't forget your transition before, okay? Do you guys have any questions? Any tips maybe that you would give Edwin? Oh, everything okay? All right. So we have this question. It says, some people are able to make decisions very quickly based on their first thoughts. Other people take a lot of time and think carefully before making a decision. Which do you think is better? Explain why by using details and examples to support your opinion. Okay? Guys, have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so Wilder, you may start speaking now.
I think it's better to think first and then making decisions, since some mistakes have big effects after the decision that has been taken. For example, sometimes I used to take that decision and then I regret myself because I didn't think the consequences about doing it. Also, I can say that it's better taking time about the decisions you are going to take, and you have to think the best for yourself and for the other persons that are implicated in the decision.
Okay, Wilder, well done. So what do you guys think, or what do you think? Emanuel, do you want to say something? Would you give any tips? Okay.
Yeah. Well, in personal, I am a person who take a decision very quickly. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Depend of the goals, of the results of my own decisions.
Okay.
And take one. Well, depend of the weight of the things. For example, it sees serious things and non-serious things. Depends of the how you say velocidad? Speed of the own decisions. For example, in sports, people need seconds for take a decision and act in the moment.
Okay, Gamaliel. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So I'll get to you in a minute. I'll give you some feedback right now. But first of all, Wheeler, as for your response. So it was good. You started directly, you answered the question. You had a great reason. So mistakes can have huge consequences. They can have a big impact. And you had your example, which was personal, right? So you said, for example, I used to make decisions, careful with the verb, right? Remember, make decisions. And that maybe I regretted later, right? Now, what I would suggest is you have a lot of time. You have enough time to give a second reason. Most of the time, you always give a second reason. Now, I think the reason why you have that extra time is because you're not elaborating too much your example, and you could elaborate it more. It's okay if you go with a shorter example and you have a second reason, but in your case, most of the time, your second reason is not really saying anything new. So in your second reason, you said, for example, furthermore, or I could also say that it's better to take time to think first before making a decision, and you need to think about yourself and the other people that's going to affect with your decision. But that was already the idea that you gave, right? That was your opinion. So in your second reason, you're repeating your opinion. So it's nothing new. So instead of having a second reason, I would really try to maybe eliminate that second reason, eliminate that part. And I would suggest that you elaborate a little bit more your example. So try to make it longer, try to make it more specific. Instead of talking about the routine in the past, so I used to make decisions that I regretted later. Tell me about one specific time where you made a decision that you regret, right? I think you can do it. So that would be my tip. If you want to have a second reason, it's fine too, but it should be different. It has to be something that you haven't said before. If not, then you're just being redundant. Okay, careful with that. You have those two options. You either give another reason that is different, or you elaborate a little bit more on your example and give more details. Okay, Wheeler? Yes?
Yep.
Okay. And Gabriel, about you. So the response that you were giving, you were making the number one mistake that you shouldn't make. And we talked about this in class. You were telling me it depends. It depends on the speed. Some people need to make decisions fast and some people don't. So you can never say it depends, right, when answering these questions. That's the number one thing that you're not allowed to do here. You need to always pick a side. So you need to tell me, yes, I think that you should always make a decision quickly, or you should never make a quick decision. You need to go for one of the options. You can never wave in between them. Okay? Yes, do you guys have any questions before we continue? Okay. All right, let's look at this one. We have, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? It is important for children to learn to draw or paint. Use details and examples to explain your opinion. So now you will have 15 seconds to prepare your response. Okay, so Edwin, please, you can start speaking now.
Okay, I do agree that it's important for children to learn how to draw and paint, since they need to find new, they need to practice a lot of ways of expression. And in my case, I have and when I was a child, I didn't learn how to draw and paint, and I had a lot of problems while I was growing up, since there were people who wanted to wanted me to show other what I think by drawing and painting, and I couldn't do that since I never practiced that much. That's why I think, sorry.
Okay, no problem. You were just missing a few seconds. That's fine. Okay, well done. I like it. So I really liked it. You started directly. I do agree that children should learn how to draw or paint. And you gave a good reason. They need to learn how to express themselves. And you gave a good example too. You talked about yourself, how you didn't learn, and how it caused problems for you. So your grammar was good as well. You did use that transition that I told you to before the example. So it was honestly a really good response. Careful with the tenses maybe, but it was like one tiny mistake you did, grammar mistake, but everything else was great, Abby. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, let's see. Let's look at another one. We have some people like to specifically plan how they will spend their free time. Others prefer to keep their free time open and not schedule activities in advance. Which do you prefer and why? You have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So, Gamaliel, you there?
Hi.
Yeah. Okay. So, please, you may start speaking now.
I prefer have a specific plan for spend my time, my own time, or my time, because you have a wall. Well, no. How do you say camino?
A path?
Path. Yeah. And you have a path to follow in the time for make more activities.
Okay. So, did you realize that you were just in your reason, right? And you ran out of time. You need to hurry up a little bit. What did you do when you were preparing? Did you think of your reason when you were preparing? During the 15 seconds you had?
Um, I need more time to 50 seconds, but and it's good. It's good time for preparing.
Okay. During those 15 seconds, you need to be thinking of your reason. And it has to be short, right? So go with the shortest one. So maybe you could say, I prefer to have a scheduled or have scheduled activities because that way I don't waste time. Or maybe because if I don't, then later I won't be feeling like doing anything and I won't do anything at all. Okay, so think of short reasons and save time in your introduction. You shouldn't be wasting time there. You're taking too long in the intro. You took 20 seconds now. It should be shorter than that. Careful with the grammar too. Remember, you're going to have a lot of prefers. So remember that after the verb prefer, when you have another verb, you need to use the word to, right? So I prefer to have instead of I prefer have. I prefer to have time for spending or I prefer to have a schedule for spending my time. And another thing, very important thing, if you don't know how to say something in English, you need to find a way to paraphrase it, you need to find a way to say something else, or even go with another idea, but don't ever get stuck because of one word, right? So if you didn't know how to say path, then look for another word or try to say it in different words or maybe change the idea. Okay, Amalia? Any questions? All right. Okay, here we have, some people say that childhood is the best time in a person's life. Other people disagree. What is your opinion and explain why? You now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. Wilder, please, you may start speaking now.
In my opinion, I would say that we don't need to have childhood as the best part of our lifetime. I had a good childhood, but I think I had other really good moments in another part of my life, as college, where I met friends that are really, really good with me. And for instance, I have my friend Mauricio that study civil engineering, and we always talk about everything, and he's like a confident friend. And I have good memories with him of college.
Okay, great. I love your example. It was a great example to have. And it did illustrate your reason, right? That college was the best time of your life for you. Now, the first part, the introduction, I would try to make it more direct. So you were maybe hesitating a bit, right? You would say, I would say that we don't need to have childhood as the best time of our lives. That isn't really the question, right? Be more direct. So I would say that, or personally for me, childhood wasn't the best time of my life. College was, right? And then you explain why. Since I had the opportunity to make really good friends, for example, and then you give your example. But try to sound more sure about what you're saying and don't add any counterpoints, right? Like, I had a good childhood, but try not to have opposing arguments. Okay, so that would be the only tip. Be more direct in your introduction, but your reason and your example were really cool. Hold on. Okay, guys, do you have any questions so far? Does anyone have any question? Let's take a look at this. We have, when some people have a little extra money, they like to spend it right away on something that they enjoy. Others prefer to save the extra money. Which do you like to do? Explain why. Okay, so do you like to save money or spend it right away? You will now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so Edwin, please go ahead.
Okay, in my I prefer to save the extra money that I have, since I like to be a preventive person. For example, when I always learned about there are always emergency situations about something about at university. They ask you about the photocopies or whatever, or at life you can have an accident, and if you have already spent that extra money and you don't have anything else, you were gonna what are you gonna do? So it's always preferable to save that extra money.
Okay, that'd be great. So I see that you have mastered the structure, even though you were in yesterday's class. So you got the structure. You're good with there. So you have your introduction. It was direct. I prefer to save the extra money. You have your reason. I like to take my preventions because anything could happen. and you have your details. So for example, and you mentioned different things that could happen. Accidents, so maybe you'll need the money for college. Great. So it was really good in terms of content, the way you spoke as well. One tiny tip for grammar, careful, maybe you're overusing the preposition about, and maybe you're not using it in the correct places, right? And that's a very common mistake. So try to hear yourself when you're speaking, and every time that you mention the word about, not when you're practicing, right? But other times, ask yourself if you actually needed that word there, right? So for example, you said, so maybe universities ask you about photocopies. So they ask you for photocopies, right? Or you said maybe, I don't know, an accident about, I think you used it twice, but careful with that word, okay? But everything
thank
else is really good. Okay, guys, let's do another one. Agree, disagree, then your reasons using specific details in your explanation. People are more likely to enjoy themselves at concerts or films if they go with a group of friends. Okay, so people are more likely to enjoy themselves at concerts or films if they go with a group of friends. You guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your response starting now. Okay, so Wilder, please go ahead.
I would definitely say that I prefer to go alone to some events, since I found the reason that spending time alone is better for me, so I can meet myself more and more. And that happens since I saw that some friends just look me for interests or when they want something, and I basically prefer going alone to the cinema most of the time. And also, for instance, I also like to go to eat alone sometimes because I enjoy more the food.
Okay, okay, good. So people are not more likely to enjoy themselves. You actually enjoy yourself better alone, right? Rather than with a group of friends. Great. And I liked your details too. So you talked about different activities that you enjoy doing alone. And you had a reason, right? Why maybe it's not good to hang out with friends so much. So it was well done. It was a little bit different than the usual structure, but it was still understandable. It wasn't off topic. So that was a good response, Winter. Thanks. Okay, guys. Maybe we can do one more before we leave, and we'll be fine. So maybe a little bit difficult, but it says, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? 18-year-olds are not mature enough to vote. Use specific examples and details to support your opinion. Okay, are 18-year-olds mature enough to vote? You have now 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so please, Gamaliel, you may start speaking now. Your microphone's okay.
Yes. I totally agree with the statement about 18-year-old are not mature enough to vote because people in this in this time for their lives. Maybe things in Paris, sports, lost time, are people don't mature for that responsibility to is do a vote.
Okay, Gamaliel, that was better. That was good. So, congrats. Your introduction now was at the correct speed. It was exactly 8 seconds because you finished your introduction and you got 37 seconds to continue. So great. And now you didn't waste too much time in the introduction. And you explain your reason. They're not mature enough because their mind is in other places, right? And you did give details as well. You gave specific examples as to what they're thinking of, right? You said that maybe they're thinking of sports, they're wasting their time, so they don't have this maturity to go. So it was maybe not the typical structure. You should always go first with your reason. Their mind is in other places, and then with the details, right? So for example, they're thinking of this and this and that. But it was still everything, it was still what they're asking for. So well done, that was better than me. Okay, guys. So what do you think? Do you guys have any questions before we go? Remember, we still have one more class to practice this, so we'll be fine. Do you guys have any questions? Anything to add, anything to say before we go? No? Okay, so please don't forget today's survey, and I'll be seeing you guys in tomorrow's class. Okay, thank you so
Bye,
much.
teacher.
My
Bye-bye.
miss.
Bye.